everyone, to another week of iFU the Podcast. I'm your host, Austin.
I'm Sarah.
And Trent.
And this week we are going to talk about fear. But before we do, let's have a recap of our previous episode.
We talked about good distractions, bad distractions, those in between, linked them to people, our goals.
And the reasons that could drive us to have distractions.
Yeah, we have distractions in our lives that keep us from fulfilling our goals. And we need to make sure that our distractions are positive and point us in a direction that will benefit us in some way and help us to eventually get back to our goals.
That is if we have distractions.
If you have a distraction.
Yes, if you need a distraction, for sure. So this week, though, we are going to talk about the hidden meaning behind bad distractions, which oftentimes tends to be fear. So, for an example of why we'd have fear, it could be a potential failure or the failure of fear for something that's to come. It could be rejection, or maybe you are just afraid to confront the thing that you need to do, or afraid of somebody's what you think that their thoughts will be of you,
or afraid of someone's reaction, or afraid of just a negative outcome of like a future goal. You can avoid building your goals out of fear.
And the whole point we're talking about fear is not to be a group of Debbie Downers, of course. This is all about trying to flesh out the bad, the fear, and get through your hard distractions so that you can go and you can create a structure for your life to have a positive life.
So one example for fear for me was discussing my, recent year or so with my, church family, which is crazy because, there's a major support group that I have that just I failed to utilize in any way. Other people in the church got some bad news, and it kind of hit me pretty hard, so I finally spoke up and said, hey, I need some prayer and support here, and briefly explained what it was, and I got a lot of love and support out of that. But, fear of, being judged or putting myself out there and letting people see that, really stopped me from utilizing that support group.
Mm-hmm. And that goes back to what our first topic was about having people in your life too. Because you have to create that support group, whether it's among friends, people you go to church with, people you share hobbies with, and hopefully it's the people you live with. Always good to display, I don't want to say a weakness, but show that fear because it's human. You're showing vulnerability. And when you share that, then people tend to want to help and be around you. And then that's how your community for yourself will grow.
And if you don't ask for help, no one's going to help you.
Right.
Unless they just look at you and they can obviously see it.
Right.
But most people are good enough at hiding it that people won't ever know there's anything wrong. So, especially when you have people close to you, it's usually going to be safe to confide in them, and they're going to help you.
My pastor has always said that nobody can help you if they don't know there's a problem. And so it's always good to speak out about your issues and your problems. I would say a personal fear for me, I've talked to my spouse about this, and it's been rooted way back since I was a kid, but sometimes it's just making a decision on to do something, whether it's as simple as telling the truth or not. So, like, for instance, I come from a broken home, and when I was young, my parents, they got divorced, and obviously that left a scar. Well, so it was hard for me to trust people. And so I've had to, through the years, push myself, all right, I got to give my spouse this. I got to trust her in this. But I've also failed at times. I've lied and said I'm doing this when really I was doing something else. And eventually I'd admit it to her. But still, the point is you have to realize there's fear, and then you have to realize where it's coming from and where it started. And when you find the root of it, then you can unroot it. And then hopefully with people who love you, you can overcome that fear.
That's exactly what happened to me at church this past Sunday. Was the elder that I've always been really close to said, "How are you doing?" And I lied to him. I said, "I'm good." He goes, "How are you really doing?" Like, he obviously knew. I said, "Well, I'm horrible, but I'm okay." And that kind of drove me to, be honest and, talk about it.
Yeah.
I think the keynote here, because I'll even go through mine, is my personal thing is I've always struggled to maintain communication within my relationships or my family member relationships, because dealing with negative emotions in either one of those has always been uncomfortable, if that makes any sense. I grew up in a home where with my mom on one side, it's like it was always emotions. There were emotions everywhere, so you were just tired of the negative emotions. So at my mom's, I was always trying to focus on the positive, push the positive almost, especially like when it came to my little brother who was younger than me. At my dad's, there really was an emotion. It was kind of like the avoidance of emotion. Like everybody kind of did their own thing. Dad watched TV, stepmom watched TV, stepsister did something, you did something. It was always separate. So it was always the avoidance of emotion. So I kind of get stuck in the middle of, okay, I really want to talk about this right now, or I think I'm gonna not talk about it and hope it goes away.
We must have had the same parents.
Yeah. Well, I think with a lot of parents, most of the time, unless they're very healthy, like always work together parents, there are completely different parenting styles.
Mm-hmm. Oh, for sure.
So I think, and one is always better with the emotions than the other, and that's okay, because I think everyone on this earth is always at a different level. But I definitely think fear comes into communication with everybody.
Yeah.
Because nobody wants to disappoint. No one wants to deal with a negative reaction. No one wants to deal with a unhealthy reaction or emotion. And it's the avoidance of doing it. So if I don't talk about it, then it'll go away, right? Or if I don't talk about it, they won't know that I'm upset about it. Or if I don't do this, which, if not done, ends up eating away at you in the long run, because you're just doing a disservice to yourself.
I was going to say, it even it'll come through your actions.
Yep.
That you do.
Yep.
And then people are like, okay, what's actually going on here?
Yeah.
And when it comes to different styles, whether it's parenting or, treating others a certain way, especially if you share the same household, like we all come up from different upbringing. So your spouse or partner, for my example, we grew up that, if you were disciplined, then, you'll behave. Well, then there's the opposite side of that, been like, well, it's not that we don't discipline you, we just don't discipline you with physical. And so, especially with my wife and I, we had to come to a middle ground of that, to figure out what's the parenting style for both of us.
Yeah.
When we are just holding all that in, if you don't do that communication, it'll just tear you up. It tears me up personally. And being an extrovert, I'm very active and everything. So very quickly if I'm getting torn up by something, because I'm just kind of moping around, kind of just looking off. I might still be smiling because that doesn't go away, but
never.
But you can tell there's something different, something wrong about the individual.
Yeah, agreed. It sits in there, which in, worst case scenarios, the longer you hang on to it and some need or something's not being met, you start gaining resentment. You start hanging on to a lot of negative feelings or a lot of guilt where you're like, well, I should have told them this, but I don't want them to leave, or I don't want them to do this, or I don't want them to do that. and you're just avoiding even just being honest within something you've done or just within yourself out of fear of the way they're going to react, when in hindsight you probably don't know how they're going to react. It could be completely different. It's been exactly what I thought and completely different, or somewhere in the middle. Like, you can't judge it, but it always feels better just to be honest. And that's something I've worked on over the last 2.5 years, and now I refuse to not be honest. I'm not gonna lie to you. I know this may hurt, but to be honest to myself, I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm not gonna let it eat me alive. Because if we're not working, we're not working. Or if we're doing great, but just this one little thing hurt my feelings, why not squash and let that person know just this little thing hurt my feelings? Then let it hurt your feelings, and then they do something else because they don't know it's not okay. Mm-hmm. And then that hurts your feelings, and it builds onto that, and you just keep letting it go. That's going to turn into resentment. Right. So it's just going to be a repeated behavior, and they didn't even know.
And if they don't put the toilet paper on the right way on the roll, and you just keep looking at it and it's just bothering the crap out of you, you should probably say something.
Okay,
yeah.
But if they're putting it in toilet paper inwards, there's something deeply wrong with it.
Okay, let's hash it out. Does everybody believe the toilet paper goes on top?
Over.
Yes, okay. I think we're all in agreement here.
There's actually a blueprint schematic for the toilet paper of how it's supposed to go.
Yeah, just look at whoever invented it. Yeah. That'll be
If you can't figure out your relationship based on that toilet paper roll, there is something going on that you need to deal with.
What's funny is I feel like that is a discussion in any household, honestly.
Well,
it's the damn toilet paper.
And it might not be the toilet paper, but it might be the way you do dishes.
Yeah.
Or it might be, the way you fold laundry.
Or the way you clean the bathroom.
Yeah.
Or what products you use or don't use. Or it's crazy.
Yeah. It can be the little things, just because the way that you don't do it the way they're used to doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like you live with each other day in, day out. It's always going to be little things that start something. The little things. And that's just for tolerance of having human beings that are not you, that don't operate like you in your vicinity 24/7.
And that was a fear in my relationship. It's like, okay, laundry needs to be done, but I know I'm not going to get it right. I'm going to get yelled at for it, but it was like, do the laundry and you're going to get in trouble for it. Don't do laundry, you're going to get in trouble for it. Doing the dishes, everything. It was micromanaged.
Do not put down the person just because they didn't do it the way you wanted to do it.
Oh, yeah. I one time was put down because growing up, I was not taught to use what I call a loofah, which is like the sponge thing. You know what I'm talking about, with the string, and you scrub your body down. And I was not taught to use a rag. And my grandma would ask me if I wanted a rag when I went over there. I'm like, why in the world would I want a rag? Like, I'm so confused. Flash forward to being an adult, and I get in a relationship with someone, and she was like, did you use my loofah? And I'm like, no. She's like, what would you clean your body with? And I said, my hands and soap. And she roasted me alive, and not in a nice way, but told me I was gross and disgusting because I wasn't scrubbing my body right. And it's like, dude, I literally didn't know that was even like a thing. Like, I've seen that stuff before, but I didn't know the point of it, and I was never raised to do that. Mm-hmm. You could have taught me. You could have been my friend and my partner and taught me.
Yeah. And those things hold bacteria anyway.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a big thing at our house now, is the loofah or the rag. 2 of us like the loofah, 1 of us likes the rag. I personally think the rag is freaking gross, dude. I'll just buy a new, but I understand, like, I get that you use it once and you wash it. Mm-hmm. I get it. But eventually, okay, here's my question. So have you seen the videos of the people putting the towels in the bathtub with the baking soda and everything, and then the towels have all this soap scum and dirt and crap?
Yeah.
How often can you use a rag until it looks the exact same thing, and you're just rubbing that dirty soap scum filled rag all over your body, and it's no different than that loofah? When the loofah, I just throw it away and I go get a new one.
Not that we're deterring you from using a rag.
Yeah, no. This is personal opinion.
Personal opinion.
Clean your body however you
want. I don't know. I'm not a scientist, and I've never tested bacteria on a loofah or whatever you call it in a rag.
But we're all fine.
Yeah. We're alive. We're dying of infection to the skin.
The important thing is we bathe.
Yeah.
Shower.
Yes.
We practice good hygiene.
Sure. But to get back to the point of that, though, is when you or your spouse or partner, they do the task, whether it is the laundry, even if it's the wrong way, be like, I'm so glad you did the laundry for me. Thank you so much. Be positive, be reinforcing, be like, well, maybe next time, if you can, try doing it this way, because this is how I like to do it. But I do appreciate you stepping up and doing that.
Yeah, the way I do it is, hey, I really, really like this. What do you think about this?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because maybe there's a reason they're doing it this way. Because there's one person in our house that is the clean person, the one that's always doing the laundry, always in a very particular way, and I'm pretty lax. So I'm just like, what do you think about this? You know what I mean? Because some people can be sensitive when it comes to the way they do things. And then, I don't know, when it comes down to a laundry, everybody's different. Everybody wants their stuff in their drawer or hung, or it's always different. So, I personally do not care if my stuff is inside out when I hang it.
I mean,
One of my
as long as you put it on correctly.
Yeah, no, one of my partners, you can't do that. No, they can't be inside out. They have to be folded this way, hung, this way. Now, I will say, if you hang things in your closet and it is not color organized, I don't understand, but
you would hate
most
my
of the time
closet,
will
then.
not judge you.
You will hate my closet.
I cannot. It has to be in color order.
Mine has, I should say, my rack has no order to it. I've got hoodies and t-shirts and everything mixed and mingled in together on a hanger.
If I'm taking time carefully to do things, I will even put the hangers up by color. That's just too much, man. I mean, it's not really like something I need to do, but as I'm doing it, I feel like I have to.
Yeah. As you're paying more attention and have more time, it's something you do. Yeah. No, I always keep my hoodie separate, my long sleeves separate, but then when it comes down to just short sleeve shirts or whatever, white to black, colors in the middle. Don't put a gray in with my blacks, and don't put a pink in with my whites. No, I will stand there and reorganize all of it to color code.
If there's practical application, if you're putting together an outfit, you want to know where you're going.
Yeah,
it makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, but see, I just get clothes that match everything. So
I mean, most of my clothes are blue.
Explain. You just get clothes that match anything. What is that? You only have one color?
In other words, I wear jeans. Jeans, match basically everything that I have.
And
so
jeans and t-shirt.
I do in my closet. I will say that one side, so the right side, if you're looking at it, is all the clothes I will wear on a regular. If it gets further and further left, that means that I'm probably not wearing it that often. And that could be because of the season or whatever it is.
Dress clothes.
Dress clothes. Things like that. But I will say, these hangers are always empty because I'm always using them. But like I said, though, it's intermingled with hoodies and whatnot.
Yeah,
so
it's all mixed in there.
It's all mixed in there.
Anyways, on to the conversation.
Yes. So don't be afraid to do something just because it might not be the way somebody wants you to do it, or because you think you're going to be judged based on your performance, or you might even be afraid of what you will think. Like if you have a goal for yourself and you have a fear of failing and you get to that goal, you might be afraid of the result. And don't let that factor into the fact that you keep trying and get back up and do better again.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you can make goals and you can say, by this time I'm going to hit this point. And a lot of people kind of give up on their own goals based on fear because, say, they want to lose 40 pounds by the time they hit the 1 year mark. Mm-hmm. And then they're doing good. And then there's always a lull in your gym routine. And most of the time it's due to, you're still losing body fat, but you're also massively increasing your muscle build quite a bit. So then people get stuck on the scale and it's like they hit that lull, and the longer they go and it's like they don't see this drastic change, they start giving up. They start letting that affect them. And it's literally just a fear of not hitting their goal when they wanted to hit their goal. And there's a lot of beauty and grace. And you know what? I didn't meet it now, but at this point I did. And then the next goal I had, I blew it out of the water. I hit that goal way before I even planned on hitting that. And it's simply because you didn't give up.
And maybe when you hit that goal, you realize, okay, maybe I went about this goal the wrong way. And so you need to change the routine of how you did it.
Yep.
Then you can see a completely different result. And even if it's still not the result you're wanting for, well, now you at least have something to aim for because you've seen the result of this and you've seen the result of this. And so go for the middle or whatever.
Yeah, because, well, I'm going to keep using the gym as a reason for it, though, is because if you keep doing the same thing, your body gets used to it and it stops changing. Realize that there is change in meeting your goal. You can't continue some things you can, it's very routine, but there will always be change while you are trying to hit your goal. That doesn't mean you give up.
Yeah. So fear tends to be a driving emotion for us as people, whether it's to do something or not to do something. But how would it affect us negatively if we were to give in to fear?
You would lie.
You would lie, yeah.
If you're afraid of doing something, oftentimes it'll cause you to do other things. Like, I'm afraid of going to do this thing I need to do. Like, I'm afraid of going to the gym. Just use that as an example. And that can be like social anxiety. You can't actually be afraid of going to the gym. But say, if you're stressed out about that, you're going to do something else. Like, all right, well, I'm going to go home and just sit down and play video games. Or
go home, sit down, play video games, stress eat.
So fear will push us into action of some kind, and oftentimes it's negative. So we need to identify that and try to use that fear as more of a positive motivation. Oftentimes, if you rationalize, like in your head, get in your head and it's like, look, if I don't do this, it's never going to change. It's never going to get better. So I have to do this. So recognize your fear and then face it.
Yeah. And a lot of times I look at it as if there's not something in you that is worried or nervous or afraid when you're thinking about doing something and you probably don't care enough.
It's true.
Because if I truly did not care if I went to the gym, I would not be worried about not going to the gym because I don't care. I don't care. Or it's like some people are like, well, I got to get on my game because if I don't do my daily this, because they care. That's something they're building. That's something they're doing. So realize there will be fear and anxiousness going into things, but that's just simply because you care. Don't not do it because you notice those emotions.
Now, how can fear, kind of throwing this one off the cuff, but how can fear affect those around us? Like, if you were to give in to your fear, how would that affect somebody next to you?
Well, that's oftentimes like what I struggle with, like just sitting on Discord. Like, I know my friends are together in that Discord channel and I'm encouraged to be there. I welcome there, but just my social anxiety, irrational fear keeps me from joining. Like, they want me in that group talking to them, but I'm just stuck, and it's so hard sometimes, and it makes no sense. But that's one way your fear can really affect your relationships.
Yeah, because then they're sitting there and they see you on and you're not joining for the 45th time, and they're like, dude, what's going on with, like, does Trent mad at us? Is he just doesn't like playing with us? Does he, or something if you were like, yeah, dude, I'm just really nervous coming into this, like, they'd be like, oh, okay, well, they can sometimes accompany things like that, or like someone that's good at keeping conversation can really step in and be like, okay, so da-da-da-da-da.
Yeah, actually the other day my brother saw that I was playing a game and he called me through Discord. He's like, oh, thanks for inviting me.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
I'm like, I was just in my own headspace. Like, I saw him come on, but I was already in the middle of a game. And I could have invited him. And sometimes it works that way. Like, you want people to join, you don't want people to join. And then, you have the fear of, well, if I have people join, then, or if I have people come over to my house, or if I, say, hey guys, why don't we try and go and do this? Well, then you might have the fear of, well, he's kind of weird. Why would he want us to go out there and hang out? Or why would he want to go see that movie? Or, you might have these questions in your mind that are of doubt, that are telling you, they think you're a loser. They don't really want to hang out with you.
And like last weekend, one of the Discords I hang out with, they met on TikTok. They usually put up calls for like, hey, we're doing this, and usually I don't respond to it. I just let other people fill those spots. But I was like, hey, I can join. I haven't played Disney in like months, but I was like, I might have to update though. And they were like, all right, well, just let us know. And I jump in, and they're all very excited, to be playing with me again. So just don't let your fears stop you from being with people that actually want to be around you.
Once you joined and they were all excited to play with you, how did you feel?
Really good. I had a lot of fun too.
And relieved.
Yeah.
And realized your fear was based on just you.
Yeah, just my anxiety.
Yeah. And then it's like in your relationships, if you fear to communicate, well, if that's something you constantly struggle with, then you're one of those people that puts 4 or 5 problems onto one problem because you didn't communicate the last 4 or 5, and then your partner's like, dude, like you're throwing all these at me, or you're someone that never communicates, and then all of a sudden you're like, okay, well, I don't want to be in this relationship, and they're like, what did I even do? Like we were fine, I thought. It throws
How
off.
did you get to step A to step Z?
Yeah. Or if on worse end, you're someone who avoids conversation, and then just when asking, are you okay? Or when being asked, how are you feeling? Let's do a mental check. And you're not saying, or you're lying, pushing the avoidance of communicating and being honest, and you're lying to people. Well, then that creates an entire relationship process over just simply of being afraid, being okay with not always being perfect. Not everything's going to be perfect. Can't let it become so fear-based that you are developing negative habits like lying or hiding, a lot of people don't truly do it to hurt somebody. It was completely for the reason of being afraid of being vulnerable to the negative emotions of someone they don't want to lose, or that they value so much they don't want them to be disappointed in them. And it creates a judgment of their personal character over something that you were trying to avoid, and you didn't mean to hurt that person, but you did.
Yeah, and that's that fear causes action even though you don't see it.
Yep.
But most of the time, inaction is a pretty big step for somebody else on the other side of it.
Yep.
Inaction is just another form of action.
Yep.
Yeah. When we are faced with these fears and we're trying to still continue to create this positive lifestyle, in order for us to grow as individuals, we need to end up having the courage to push through the fears. Because when we do that, then you get characteristics that you never thought you had.
Mm-hmm.
Because you finally put out all that doubt or whatever's been taunting you in your mind, and you're like, you know what? I'm actually a much better person than I originally thought I was.
And the more you do something, like the more often you face that fear, the easier it gets.
Yeah. You go through 4 or 5 times of relieving yourself of you just not being a good person and just being honest with someone. Even if one person, or maybe it was multiple people, even the reaction from it wasn't good. The more you do it, you're like, if the worst thing that happens is they leave, or if the worst thing that happens is they tell me that they are disappointed in me and they do not like that, if the worst thing that happens is they just feel negatively about it, but I know I was honest about my actions or my character, or I was honest about my feelings and they didn't like that. I was true to myself, and being true to yourself,
it's important,
is the number one way to form peace and happiness with yourself.
Yeah.
I would much rather be honest about me being a bad person than lie about me being a good person.
Absolutely. Be true to yourself. And that's important because you'll find yourself with people who accept your true self. You don't have to put on that face. You don't have to put on that mask. So next week, we're going to talk about what it looks like when we do have courage. And we're going to see how we can tie that all into our previous points that we had in our episode, which had to do with building a positive life by surrounding yourself with good, positive people, while also having goals, and then in the process of creating a structure for yourself. We are going to remove bad distractions and find out when it's okay to put in good distractions. But if you actually don't need the distractions because of the courage you have, courage overcomes fear. And so that's what we'll be talking about next week, guys. Thank you again for listening to the iFU.Podcast. Hope to see you again. And remember, you are loved.
Always be kind.
And keep trying.
All right, guys. See you next time.
Bye.